Hi, can everyone hear me? Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Hi, we hear you.
Okay, great, thanks. So I'm going to just wait one more minute. We'll wait till 8:35 and then we can get started. This year I do not think is going to take as long as last time, if anyone remembers last time. That took a while. But this one I don't think is going to be that long. But I would like input and I'll be asking questions, so feel free to answer in the chat or to just shout it out, turn off your microphones, just to make it a little bit more personable and more interactive than just through a computer screen. Okay, so first of all, my name is Aviva Dworkin, and I live in Kiryat Moshe, Jerusalem. And I recently became certified as a Kala teacher through the Eden Center, which is an amazing organization, which we are using their Zoom for. So thank you. The Eden Center helps promote women's well-being and health, especially related to mikvah. And they have a bunch of different courses to be Kala teachers or to be a balanit at the mikvah. And they're just bringing a lot of awareness about women's health and well-being. And it's just a very important organization. And I'm very happy to be connected with them. So that's the Eden Center. So thank you very much. I would also like to, that's why a lot of my classes that I've been giving lately have to do with marriage and or nida and things related to that. I would like to start off by dedicating this shir and the learning that we are doing tonight for Fua Shalema, for Eliezer ben Roma, Yedidya Moshe ben Miriam, Avram ben Chana Hinda, Yosef Azriel ben Chai Michal, and for David Yonatan Ben Yael, and for Aliana Shema, for all those that passed away in Meron, and Elkanah Ben Yael. And if there's anyone that I didn't mention that you know of, please have them in mind with our learning tonight. May Hashem have true nachas from our learning and know that we are doing this during our busy schedules. We're taking time out. We are setting time to learn his Torah, to get closer to him. And we are doing that in a group, so we are getting closer together as well. We are trying to form some achdut here. Okay, so let's begin. How can you see me? What do you guys see?
We see you. You're great.
Okay, good. Okay, I want to see all of you. Gallery view. Okay, good. Hi, everyone. Some of us may have a clear picture of our wedding day in our minds, maybe because it happened like this past week. I know some people that just got married very recently. Some of us, the picture might be a little bit more fuzzy because it happened so long ago. And for others amongst us, it's just a dream, but it's a clear dream and it's a vision and we're waiting for it to happen. Either way, the wedding day stands out from all other days of the year and for our lives. And it's a very memorable time. Why is that? What is so special about a wedding? What's the significance of a wedding day? So anyone want to throw out some ideas from the start? What's so special about a wedding? Why is it so memorable? There's no wrong answer here. Anything? Why is it so special? I know we don't really like stop and think about it. We just assume like it just is because it's a wedding. That's why. But if we really think about it, it's a declaration of commitment. It's a public declaration of commitment that we're committing ourselves to our groom. Our groom is committing himself to the bride. It's a celebration of love. We're dedicating ourselves to someone else. We're showing dedication. So I think that's really when we like stop to think about it, that's really what makes it a special day and something that is memorable. Should be memorable. So there is a source that compares Matan Torah to a wedding day. And The title of the shir is Matan Torah and Marriage, or Marriage and Matan Torah. The two are linked. So that's our first source. I'm going to share it with you now. Here we go. Matan Torah and Marriage. So the first source that you can all see, yes? I'm going to make it big. Here we go. It's in Masechet Tanit, and it's based on the...
Can you make it a dot bigger?
Sure. How about now? Good?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So now I just have to move your faces, your lovely faces. Let's put you over here. Okay, so Chazal, the rabbis in Tanit, are expounding on a verse in Shir Shirim, and that pasuk goes as follows. Here we go. Omer tzena re'ena benot Zion b'melech Shlomo batera shitera lo imo b'yom chatunato o b'yom simchat libo. B'yom chatunato ze matan Torah o b'yom simchat libo ze binyan beit hamikdash sheyabana b'mhera b'yameinu. So the pasuk that they are expounding on is, "Go forth, daughters of Zion, and gaze upon King Solomon, upon the crown with which his mother crowned him on the day of his wedding, and on the day of the gladness of his heart." So the Gemara goes on to say, what is the day of his wedding? When was this? This is the giving of the Torah. So this is our source that tells us that Matan Torah is a wedding day, is like a wedding day. We also have the Tashbitz that says all customs. I have it in here, but I don't have it on the computer, but it is. The Tashbitz says all customs regarding the Chatan and Kala we learn from Matan Torah. So let's see that. Let's see how that works exactly. But before we go comparing and contrasting, why Shavuot and why a wedding? Why dafka those two? Why isn't Rosh Hashanah compared to a wedding day, or Pesach? Why dafka Shavuot? So we know that Shavuot is the day that we relive the moment we accepted the Torah. Again, we're not commemorating anything. A commemoration seems very almost fake. It makes something seem like that it's in the past. And we don't do that when we celebrate a holiday. We're not saying that this happened to my ancestors in the past. We say, just like Pesach, we relive the moment. Everyone has to see themselves, each generation, as if they left Mitzrayim. So we kind of put ourselves back in time to try to re-experience the moment. And that's what we should be doing with Shavuot as well. And here the moment is the acceptance of the Torah. It's the day that God declared to the world his commitment and dedication to the Jewish people. And we said that's exactly what we do at a wedding, right? We're publicly dedicating ourselves and showing commitment to someone else. And that's what God did at Matan Torah. Also, a wedding conjures up these feelings of love, of happiness, of devotion. Like when I said the word wedding, I'm assuming most people here got a smile on their face. They started thinking about their own wedding or a wedding they were at recently. And even if it was a quote unquote Corona wedding and it wasn't the way that we have envisioned it for all these years until now, and we had to kind of tweak things, we're still happy about it. Some of us found Corona weddings to be even more special and more happy than other weddings. So either way, it conjures up feelings of love and happiness when we speak about a wedding. And I think these are the images and these are the feelings that Chazal wanted us to have when we associate with the accepting of the Torah. Not feelings of burdensome and putting on stress, but rather feelings of, yay, I got the Torah. This is so exciting. It's like a wedding gift, or it's a wedding itself. And I think it was purposefully chosen. I think that it's easy to be happy to leave Mitzrayim, right? That kind of is logical. We're happy to not be slaves anymore. The other holidays have these different feelings. And I think that Chazal, the rabbis, wanted us to have the feeling of happiness, joy, and love when it comes to the holiday that's surrounding the acceptance of the Torah. Okay, so some comparisons. So just off the top of your head, can you think of anything that you remember learning about Mamad Har Sinai, Matan Torah, that experience, and from going to a wedding and the wedding ceremonies, whether it's preparing for a wedding, during the wedding, or even after the wedding? Can you think of anything that we can compare and contrast here between Matan Torah and a wedding. Let's hear it.
I have one.
Yeah.
So the Gemara says that at Matan Torah kafale har kigigit. So Hashem put the mountain up above them like a barrel, and it's kind of reminiscent of the chuppah, like standing under that canopy.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, I have that source for us. We're going to look at that. Excellent. So the wedding canopy reminds us of Matan Torah and the midrash that says that the mountain was placed on top of our heads, kind of reminiscent of a chuppah. Excellent. Any other ideas that you can think of? I know not everyone's been to a wedding recently, so we kind of have to like process, wait, what do we do at a wedding again? But anything else that comes to mind? Torah, wedding. Anyone? So I'll share with you what I have. So we'll start from the beginning, the preparation going into a wedding. So there's the Shiva Nikiyim that we should be counting before we get married. So those are the 7 clean of blood days. I was taught by Dr. Judith Fogel for the Eden Center to be a Kala teacher, very specific to say clean of blood and not just clean, because as a lot of us know, it's not always that clean, but as long as it's clean of blood. So that's what we're checking for the Shiva Nikiyim. And we're going to see that counting 7 days is what Bnei Israel did as well. So I'm going to show you that source. Here we go. So here we have the source of, where is it? Number 4. Here in Vayikra is the source for waiting 7 days, Sheva Nikiyim. A woman should be waiting 7 days. So that is here at the bottom. V'im tahara, see? V'im tahara mizava v'safra la shivat yamim v'achar titar. So if she is a zava, once she stops seeing this quote-unquote zava blood, then she should count 7 clean days, and afterwards she's considered tahor, and then she can go to the mikvah. So something interesting on this topic is that we know that we also wait an additional 5 days for Ashkenaz, 4 days for Sfard after the 7 quote-unquote clean days. And this is because of the idea of Poletet Shechvat Zara, that a woman, where's my source, 9b, we're going to go all the way down, that if a woman has relations before counting her 7 clean days, before seeing her period, that the rabbis were concerned that the semen and the blood can mix together, that the semen is going to cover the blood, and she won't get a real idea of what's going on in her body, and it's not a fair check. And so she has to wait a full 3 days, which comes out Jewishly as 4 days, because we wait from night to the next night. So that comes out to 4 days. And so where do the rabbis learn this from? How do they know? They didn't have the technology that we have today, which actually proves this to be true, that semen stays in a woman's body for up to 3 days. But they learned it from our story. Here we go, 9b, here we go. How do we learn about this, that it takes up to 3 days? That it says, so we're going to look at this more closely, but prepping for Matan Torah, one of the preparations right up here in Shemot says that they had to separate from each other. Husband and wife had to separate from each other for 3 days before Matan Torah. Why 3 days? And the Gemara tells us it's because in case that they had relations beforehand, and to make sure that she was totally clean and she could get a clean check, and therefore become tahor, and therefore be able to go up to the mountain. So here it is inside. The Mishnah continues to cite a series of unrelated halachot based on biblical allusions, from where it is derived that a woman who discharges semen even on the 3rd day after relations is ritually impure, just like one who touches semen. Because the semen remains fit for insemination, it can transmit impurity, as it is stated prior to the revelation at Sinai, which is our pasuk, our storyline for today. And he said to the people, prepare yourselves for 3 days, do not approach a woman. This 3-day separation period ensured that even a woman who discharged semen would be pure in the time to receive the Torah. So I thought that was pretty cool and a great connection for us. I have another source for us, 7. Okay, so the pasuk also tells us, the Torah also tells us that at Har Sinai there was a cloud covering it, but it's very vague. Actually, the whole story of Matan Torah is very vague. Whoever teaches the story of Matan Torah, whether to their own kids or to students, it's very difficult. The order of events is not so clear. There seems to be a plan A and then a plan B and then back to plan A. It's a sheer in and of itself. But for our purposes now, there was a cloud there. What was the cloud covering? That's a little bit vague. And it says that it was covering for 6 days. And Rashi wants us to understand when those 6 days were. So he actually brings 2 opinions, 2 opposing opinions. The first opinion tells us, and that's right here, the source that you see here, the cloud cover. Rabotina chokim b'davar. The rabbis are divided amongst like what this means. Yishmin omrim, there are some rabbis that say, Elu sheshet yamim shemirosh chodesh. These 6 days that the cloud was covering was before Rosh, they're starting from Rosh Chodesh, and therefore, it was covering the mountain. And then on the 7th day, the cloud dissipated and then Moshe was called. So here we have the 7 days that are reminiscent of the Sheva Nekiyim. And we're saying that it's before Moshe actually said the Ser HaDibro, before he said that. So it's before the wedding day itself. Okay, stop share. Any questions so far? We're still kind of in the beginning. We're comparing a wedding to Matan Torah. We're seeing the comparisons here. And we already see that preparing for the wedding, the Sheva Nekiyim is already hinted to in the receiving of the Torah, Matan Torah. Any questions, comments? I'm going to look at the chat. No chat. Great.
I just had a thought.
Yeah.
It's really just a minhag and not halacha, but we often don't see our husband for the week before the wedding. So I just thought now, like, oh, that's kind of similar to
yes. So I have a whole section that I want to go into, like preparing for the wedding as opposed to the wedding ceremony itself. And yes, I definitely talk about that. There too, setting up fences. Again, it is a minhag, it's not halacha, that some couples will set up certain fences for themselves before the wedding ceremony, before the wedding day. And yeah, definitely reminiscent of the fences that we put up for ourselves at Matan Torah. Yeah. So back with the number 7, Sheva Nekiyim, and the 7 days around Matan Torah time. So why 7? So 7 reminds us of creation, 7 days of the week, 7 days of creation, which reminds us that we can go back to a natural relationship with Hashem. We always have that possibility to go back. That circle, that cycle reminds us that there's ups and downs in life, but there's always a possibility of renewal and going back to nature, to how things were. And on that note, also with the number 7 is Shabbos. So there is actually a comparison between Matan Torah and Shabbos, in the sense that on Shabbos we read from the Torah, there's Kriyas Torah, and the setup of Kriyas Torah, where we read the Torah, who reads from the Torah, how they stand around the Torah is supposed to actually replicate Mamad Har Sinai. We're supposed to get that feeling of, oh, I'm at Har Sinai again, just based on the structure and how everyone is standing around the Torah during Kriyas Torah on Shabbos. So that idea that, again, we read from the Torah every week, that don't worry, it's going to come again, that cycle, and the same thing with Terat HaMishpacha, that there are ups and downs, but we're going to come back again, reminds us that there is hope. And I think it's said beautifully. I have a quote for us here that is from the Eden Center blog. The cyclical nature of Torah reading and Terat HaMishpacha are a reminder of the hope and faith that the situation will get better. So I think that's really beautiful. That's from Karen Miller Jackson on the Eden Center blog. She also has a beautiful podcast every week that I highly recommend. So there's separation going on. We saw that for Matan Torah, we needed to separate for 3 days. And there's separation that goes on that Rina mentions, whether we take it upon ourselves or there's some type of separation going on before the wedding as well. And separation creates excitement. And it also shows seriousness, that I'm taking this day seriously. It's an important day. The next step is mikvah, right? Before we go to the wedding, we then go to the mikvah. Something that we did not do right before Ma'amad Har Sinai. We did not all go to the mikveh, but something that we did do as a nation prior to Matan Torah, not in preparation for and not right before, but it was done before. And what am I referring to? The seventh day of Pesach, we ended up at, who remembers, not so long ago? I'll give you a hint. Splitting of the sea, the Yam Suf, the seventh day of Pesach, we ended up in the Yam Suf, which is a body of water that can be also reminiscent of the mikveh. So as a nation, we were mitaher in the Yam Suf before getting the Torah, not right before, but before. So I thought that was a nice comparison as well. Something to think about that I hopefully will get back to later on when we talk about more practical ways of preparing for Shavuot, is a transformative place. The mikveh itself, and this is spoken about also in a podcast from the Eden Center by Dr. Jody Wachspress, is that the mikveh should be seen as a transformative place and space for us. There's a transition happening. So if it's right before a wedding, we're transforming from a single person to now a unit, to a couple, to someone's spouse. If it's a nation going through a sort of mikveh, we're going from a physical nation now to God's nation, to a spiritual nation with more responsibilities of us. So there's a transformation going on here. Even if it's not someone just getting married, not just a bride, but just a woman going to the mikveh. So there is a transformation happening from a tamei state to tahor state. And we should really take time to process that there's a change going on here. And the mikveh gives us that chance to do that. It gives us a time, a space to think about our past and to look forward to the future. And it's an action that helps us feel like a transition is taking place. Something is happening here. And it's not just time going by. Something else that we do, some people have a minhag of doing when they're engaged, is to exchange gifts. And in certain communities, there's specific gifts. But this exchanging of gifts can also be seen before, like an engagement prior to Matan Torah. So this is seen in Sefer HaMetamim, that Hashem gave us the spoils of Mitzrayim, and that was our gift from Hashem. And the gift that we give to Hashem is our commitment and dedication that we've done in Mitzrayim, which is keeping our Jewish names, our Jewish language, and our Jewish way of dressing, our unique way of doing those things. We were committing ourselves to Hashem even there, so that was an exchange of gifts. This idea, I think I might have heard it from someone, or I might have made it up. I'm happy to discuss it further if anyone's interested. But when I read the following pasuk, it reminded me of something that some people do at a wedding. Again, it's not halacha, but it's become more of a trend, I would say, nowadays to do. And I'm referring to the idea that first the chatan walks down, and then eventually when the kala comes, some women have their parents walk the kala down halfway, and then the chatan comes out of the chuppah to come and get, I know I love that part too, come and get the kala, and then he takes her back to the chuppah with him, without her parents. So again, it's not halacha, but it's become more of a trend now, I would say. And I think that kind of happened at Ma'amad Har Sinai. I found something and it just spoke to me, it reminded me of what people do nowadays. And so the pasuk is as follows. First of all, it says, "Vayu nechonim liyom hashlishi, ki biyom hashlishi yared Hashem leinei kol ham al Har Sinai." So sorry, I jumped ahead. I'm going to show it to you inside, and then I'll explain my thoughts. Source 3, we're going up. Okay, so the pasuk says that Vayetze Moshe ta'am lekrat Elokim min hamachane. So Moshe led the people out of the camp towards Hashem. And they took their place. They stood at the foot of the mountain. Okay, so just kind of picture like Moshe's escorting Bnei Israel to a certain point, and then they're just standing there waiting. And then there's a pasuk that follows, which I don't have for you here. On the third day, what happened? Yared Hashem le'nei kol ha'am al Har Sinai. Hashem comes down in front of the nation. So again, Hashem is everywhere. We don't believe that Hashem just remains on top, hovering in the heavens, and occasionally comes down to us. But there is this lashon here of coming down. The pasuk intentionally used that. Okay, Yared Hashem, Hashem comes down, and we have Bnei Israel waiting there, and it kind of reminded me of what some couples do nowadays when the woman comes halfway up the aisle and the chatan comes to get her. So if you'd like to discuss it and debate me on it, I'm open to that. But it's just an idea that resonated with me. Another idea that I recently learned, which is pretty cool, the minhag of having candles, right? A lot of people have that the parents of the chatan, the parents of the kala hold candles while they're walking the chatan and kala down the aisle. So that actually comes from, the Tashbetz tells us, the reason why people go down the chuppah with lit candles and torches is reminiscent of Matan Torah. How? And I will show you that in source number 2. Okay. If you can think on your own before I show you the source. There was thunder and lightning. So those torches, those candles that the parents hold while walking their children down the aisle are supposed to be reminiscent of the lightning that was at Har Sinai. And then we have the chuppah itself, which Rina mentioned. So here's our source for that. The Midrash tells us, based on the pasuk that we just read, that Bnei Israel were waiting b'tachtit har, at the bottom of the mountain. So the Midrash goes on to tell us that Amar Rav Avdimi bar Chama bar Chasa milamed shekfar hakadosh baruch hu aleim et har kigigit. That this rabbi interprets the fact that they were waiting at the bottom of the mountain, as in tachat hahar, on the bottom, underneath the mountain, that it was actually raised above the people's heads. The Jewish people actually stood beneath the mountain, and the verse teaches that the Holy One, blessed be He, overturned the mountain above the Jews like a tub, or like a barrel. Okay, so then I have here that Targum Yonatan ben Uziel, which I could not find for you, unfortunately, says that the suspended mountain was as clear as glass. Thus, the mountain served as a beautiful chuppah under which you could see the stars. And we know that the halacha is that a chuppah cannot be under an enclosed ceiling. There needs to be some opening. You need to be able to see the sky, the heavens. Okay, I have 3 more comparisons. Are there any questions until this point? We're all good? Again, we're comparing Ma'amad Har Sinai, Matan Torah, to a wedding ceremony. Okay, so another idea, another comparison we have is the idea of kinyan. So I will show you that source inside. This idea of kinyan. How can a woman and a man get married? What are the ways? Show me your ways. Here we go. Source 6. So the Mishnah in Kedushin tells us, Haisha niknet b'shlosha drachim, a woman is bought in 3 ways. V'kona et atzma b'shtei drachim, she acquires herself, i.e. she's able to terminate her marriage in 2 ways. So how is she acquired? That's our focus now, is getting married. Niknet b'kesef b'shtara b'via. So she's acquired through money, through documents, and through sexual intercourse. So what do we do today? So we actually do the ring. The woman gets a ring. So by accepting that ring, that is the kinyan. Okay. At Har Sinai, Hashem acquired his kala, the Jewish people, by giving them the luchot habrit. Nowadays, the chatan acquires the kala through giving her a ring, which is an item of monetary value, and that is the kinyan. But there's also another way, and that is with the bia. So we know that after the wedding ceremony, the chuppah ceremony, the couple goes into cheder yichud. What's that all about? So that actually we're supposed to be in there for a certain amount of time, and that time is really to allow us to be able to have sexual intercourse, even though no one does that nowadays. But that is what it's meant for, to be able to consummate the marriage. But what actually happens in cheder yichud? How can we view it today if that's not how we're using it, if that's not what we're doing? So I think it's to bring the couple together as one, to feel this idea of unity, of oneness, even in a short pressured amount of time, because they know there are a bunch of people waiting for them, but it's to give them that alone time to be seen as one. We are now one, we're a unit. And there's a word that I like to use with that, which is dveikut, dveikis. So here is a few sources about that, and here's my little tangent. So feel free to go get a drink or go do something while I go off on my tangent. Source number 5. So first of all, we have in Devarim this idea of us, the Jewish people, clinging, cleaving to Hashem. V'atem hadvekim b'Hashem Elokeichem chaim kulchem hayom. You who cleave to Hashem are all alive today. To connect to Hashem, but on a closer level, that you're actually clinging like glue. We're stuck to Hashem. It's hard for us to envision that because Hashem isn't a physical being. But this idea of comparing a wedding to Matan Torah hopefully will help us. Those feelings that we had in Cheder Yichud, those feelings that we have when we're dveikut with our spouse, those are feelings that we can be having with Hashem as well. Something that's pretty appropriate that I found for us also is in regards to roots. We know that on Shavuot, we read from Megillat Ruth. So I have for you here a pasuk from Megillat Ruth, 5b. Vatisena kolanu utibchena. This is when Naomi wants to part from her daughters-in-law and tell them that we can go our separate ways. And so Orpah cries out and kisses her mother-in-law, Naomi. The Ruth difkaba. But what does Ruth do? She doesn't stay. She doesn't l'sha'er. She doesn't remain with her mother-in-law. Dafkaba. She clings to her. She sticks to her. And that's the lashon used here. And there's a whole shir on that, but trying to make my tangent as brief as possible, is this idea that Ruth was clinging to Hashem and to the Torah through Naomi, by saying that she's sticking to Naomi. And we see that because right afterwards is her eloquent speech, her famous speech of wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you're buried, I'll be buried. And some of us might be familiar that speech, Chazal tell us, is referring to her conversion process, that's where Ruth converted to being a Jewish person, a Jewish woman. And that's in Masechet Yevamot. If anyone's interested, I just brought up a piece of it just for our share tonight, but that's where the rest of that can be found. And Chazal say that each line, each quote that Ruth said to Naomi, wherever you go, I will go. Naomi then said halachot, Jewish laws that Ruth would have to keep, trying to tell her not to be Jewish. And here's where we get that idea of kind of someone that wants to be a convert, we kind of try to push them away. We want to see why they really want to convert, if there's an alternative motive. So that's where we learn it from, is from this story and from how Chazal interpret this story, is that Naomi did not want Ruth to come. And Chazal say Naomi did not want her to convert. Do you really want to be part of this nation? It's going to be very hard. There's a big responsibility here. And so she would tell her these certain halachot to try to push her away. And yet Ruth stays. She clings to her. She clings to God. She clings to Judaism. So here I have for you, Amrala, Naomi tells Ruth, Isur lan tachum Shabbat. There's this concept of Shabbos, and that you can only walk a certain distance, and past that you're not allowed to. And what does Ruth say? I don't care. Bashar talechi elech. I'm still going to go with you. Wherever you go, I'll go. So that didn't deter me. So then Naomi says, okay, but there's another halacha, Isur lan yichud. There's an Isur of being in yichud. There's hilchot yichud. We're not allowed to be alone with a man. And what's Ruth's response? Basher tileni elin. Wherever you sleep, I will sleep. That didn't deter her. And the Gemara goes on further, more halachot and so on. But again, we see that Ruth does not leave. She stays, she clings. I'm just gonna check our chat here. Oh, anyone taking notes? Sorry, you could listen to the recording again. Yes, I could definitely share my sources with whoever wants. Very accessible. Okay, so just to summarize my tangent here, Dveikut is more than just staying and being a part of something or being close to someone or being in the same room. It's not just a room, it's the yichud room. It's being in there together as a unit, as one. And in order to have dveikut, we need to be selfless. It's the opposite of being selfish. Also, historical context about Ruth is in the time of Shoftim, when there was total chaos going on amongst the people. There was no unity whatsoever. And just this term of dveikut can bring us a sense of, oh, there's some unity going on. Okay, not on a national scale, but at least between some people, there's unity happening here. Dveikut is when one party embraces the totality of the other. Yeah, is there a question? Question? No? Just hearing things? Okay. So again, dveikut is when one party embraces the totality of the other completely. You embrace the other wholeheartedly. To relinquish one's ego in pursuit of a relationship, even when it is an illogical, not so logical relationship, against one's interest to even do so. And we see that with Ruth. It was against her interest to go with Naomi, and yet she let that go. She saw beyond that. Okay, so that was really my tangent from the Yichud room, and then we move on to Sheva Brachot. So is that anywhere in Ma'amad Har Sinai? First of all, something really cool. Sheva Brachot. First of all, we say Sheva Brachot at the chuppah too, but when I say Sheva Brachot, I'm going to be referring to the Sheva Brachot after the wedding, those 7 party days. But in general, in the Sheva Brachot, Hashem's name is mentioned 14 times. And drum roll. In the Luchot, the Aseret HaDibrot, Hashem's name is mentioned also 14 times. Pretty cool. Huh? Those are for all the people that like numbers out there. Okay, we said earlier that Rashi gave 2 opinions as to like when this cloud was covering and what was it covering. So opinion number 2, I'm going to show you right now, and that is, I believe, a hint to the Sheva Brachot after the wedding, and that is source 7. So here we go. The Yesh Mehen Omrim and the other rabbis say, the cloud was covering Moshe. It was covering Moshe, not the mountain like the previous rabbis mentioned. Sheshet Yamim, when were these 6 days of covering Moshe? Lachar Aseret HaDibrot. This was happening after we already got the Aseret HaDibrot. So we see here that maybe Sheva Brachot after Matan Torah happened as well. Okay, so that was my comparison. We said that the Gemara told us that a wedding day is compared to Matan Torah, and now we saw exactly how that can be. And now I want to talk about preparation, because really the goal of my shir tonight, even though we're already like halfway through it, I'll tell you my goal now. My goal is to help us better prepare for Shavuot. It is coming up, and I specifically wanted to give the shir early enough so that we do have time to prepare properly. But I think that in order to do that, we should first think about how we prepare for a wedding. If we're comparing Ma'amad Har Sinai and the wedding, so how do we prepare for a wedding? How did they prepare for Ma'amad Har Sinai, Matan Torah, if we're already in that mindset? And then to see how we can better prepare for Shavuot. So, preparing for a wedding, give me your list. How do you prepare for a wedding? Shout it out. Packing, eating ice cream.
Wedding dress.
Yes, wedding dress. What else?
All the planning and for the both ceremony and like the party, but also the learning for like
yes, all the prep work, the
halachot
kala
and,
yeah, kala
how to do things
classes.
properly.
Excellent, kala classes, ordering flowers or centerpieces, or getting a wedding planner. Different ways of planning. There is a lot that goes on to planning a wedding, and there is no list, except that I tried to create a list with some friends from a different course that I took. So I do have one. If anyone knows a kala that is getting married and would like a clear list, a checklist, I'll be happy to send that to you and to her, because our head needs to be in the right place. I like lists, so I assume someone else out there also likes lists. Okay, so different things that I thought about preparing for a wedding that we can also see how it overlaps with Matan Torah is we already spoke about the Shevanakim and the mikveh. The mikveh is a transitional space, packing and moving, relocating, new clothes or special clothes, buying rings, putting up fences of not seeing each other or not. Everyone has like their own fence to put up. If the couple was not keeping halachot of shomer negia to now maybe start keeping those halachot up until the wedding. If the couple's living together before getting married, to maybe separate rooms or to not be living together, to maybe one of them move out or both of them move out just for the week or so up until the wedding, but to put up some fences to make some change go on. Also to prepare for fasting, if they're going to fast, if they're not, how they're going to do it. And again, all the halachot pertaining to the wedding and married life. Preparing for Matan Torah. So what did that look like? I'm going to show you that right now. Source 9. Okay. So there wasn't that much. It wasn't like preparing for a wedding, at least not a modern 21st century wedding. But we still had stuff to do. So, Vayomer Hashem al Moshe, Lich el ha'am v'kedashtem hayom u'machar v'kibsu simlotan. Shem tells Moshe, go to the people and warn them to stay pure today and tomorrow and let them wash their clothes. So they're not buying a wedding dress, but their clothes should at least be clean. Okay, and we spoke about that in terms of the aisle, and Hashem comes down the mountain. So here we have a fence coming up. You shall set bounds for the people around about the mountain, saying, beware of going up the mountain or touching the border of it. Whoever touches the mountain shall be put to death. And then it gets a little bit scary, but it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman or an animal. Whoever touches this mountain will be put to death. And that's the following pasuk: Lo tiga bo yad ki sekoiskal o yore ki behema im ish lo yichyeh v'moshach hayovel hema yalu bahar. No hand shall touch him, but he shall be either stoned or shot. Doesn't matter if it's a person or an animal, he shall not live. But when the shofar is blown, and it's a long blast, the shofar, then things are going to get started. So they listened. Moshe came down from the mountain, the people were warned, and they washed their clothes. And we spoke about this as well. Separate, husbands and wives should separate for 3 days. And this is how we prepared for Matan Torah. Literally, like this was it. So things that I thought about when going through this is the fact that it kept saying Kadosh. So I looked on Al HaTorah, which is an amazing website. I highly recommend it. And you can type in any given text that you want if you want to look at any parsha as a whole or parak or just few psukim. So I put in our psukim that we just looked at today. And I asked the website, Al HaTorah, to tell me how many times the word kadosh is mentioned. And it's mentioned 4 times. And that was only, 4 psukim? I think that's a lot for one word. So there is an emphasis on making ourselves holy, sanctifying ourselves. And that's a really broad term. Again, enough for a whole nother share. But it does remind me also of a wedding day, and that a chatan and kala are considered kadosh, and this day is considered kadosh. And we know that this day, a wedding day, is considered kadosh because it's seen as like a mini Yom Kippur, we say, right? That the couple says vidoy on their wedding day, that they're pure of their sins. Hashem atones for their sins on this day. And Yom Kippur is the holiest day of the year. And so if this is a mini Yom Kippur, so this is also a pretty holy day. So here we have that word kadosh appearing for preparing for Matan Torah. And so this is also a term that we could associate with a wedding as well. So we saw that they washed their clothes in order for their clothes to be tahor, in order for them to be tahor and able to go to Har Sinai. But that still does remind me of special clothes. You're making your clothes special, and we do that for a wedding as well. Like someone mentioned, I think it was Leah mentioned, getting a wedding dress. So I see that connection here. And then we have the fences. There was a big emphasis of no one, not even an animal, should be touching this mountain. So there were definitely fences, physical, literal fences being put up. But we did mention that there are couples that take on this idea of putting up spiritual fences for themselves right before a wedding as well, preparing for their wedding. And we said that that makes the day more special. That makes the wedding that more special. And it shows seriousness, that I'm taking this day seriously. It's not just fun and games. It's not just a day to party, but there's something serious going on here. So those are some of the comparisons I saw for preparing for the wedding, preparing for Matan Torah. Are there any questions or comments up until now? Okay, so we're flying. Here we go. Preparing for Shavuot. Everyone's like, wake up. Now's when she's talking about the thing we wanted to hear. Okay, so how do we prepare for Shavuot? Anyone? How are you guys preparing for Shavuot? Yes, cheesecake. I saw that. Lots of cheesecake recipes going around. And that's about it. Maybe I'm going to buy some extra milk. Shira to Omer. Ooh, you heard the same shir I heard maybe, because here we go. Exactly. There's not really much to do for Shavuot because Shavuot doesn't have any physical mitzvot attached to it. Meaning for Pesach, everyone's like, don't even mention the word Pesach. Like, I'm still having post-trauma from that. Why? Because there's the mitzvah of matzah, but there's also the mitzvah of no chametz. So I have to go buy matzah, but I also have to get rid of chametz, and that takes forever to do, especially this year when it was on Shabbos. Like, that was stressful. So there's a lot to do to prepare for Pesach, that's for sure. Even Rosh Hashanah, right? We have this, the mitzvah of listening to the shofar, which machloka if women have to or not, separate shir, but we at least prepare for Rosh Hashanah at least by getting the schedule and times of when to go and listen to the shofar blowing, right? But there might be some other prep work going on for Rosh Hashanah as well. The same thing for Sukkot. We have to go out and build the sukkah. We need to go buy the materials for that, lulav and esrog. There's a lot to do to prepare for these holidays because these holidays have a lot of mitzvot attached to it. Shavuot, not so much. So I'm going to prepare by making cheesecake or buying a cheesecake, or I'm going to go get my lactose intolerant pills because there's going to be a lot of lactose going around. I'm going to prepare for Shavuot maybe to get a lot of caffeine beforehand so I could stay up all night, but staying up all night isn't even a mitzvah. So how can we prepare? So exactly what Sippy wrote is Sfirat HaOmer, counting. And we already are doing that. And that's why I wanted to give this shir now before it's too late, while we're still doing it. So I'm going to show you the pasuk inside about Sfirat HaOmer. And that is source number 10. Here we go. And everyone's going to sing it along with me. וספרתם לכם ממחרת השבת, מיום הביאכם את העומר תנופה, 7 שבתות תמימות תהיינה. And from the day on which you bring the sheaf of elevation offering, the day after the Sabbath, you shall count off 7 weeks. They must be complete. עד ממחרת השבת השביעית, תספרו 50 יום, והקרבתם מנחה חדשה להשם. You must count until the day after the 7th week, 50 days, then you shall bring an offering of new grain to Hashem. So you could already see I underlined for you, made it a little easier. The counting part, Visvartim, Tisperu, there's a lot of counting going on. So first of all, something really interesting. Rena and I actually learned this together, and this is kind of how this year started to formulate in my head was based on this. From Netivot Shalom, the Netivot Shalom says that these 7 weeks, these pure 7 weeks, these full 7 weeks that we are counting, that we are in the middle of right now, are reminiscent of the Sheva Nekiim, which we spoke about earlier. So here we have another comparison going on. But I want to take it a step further and discuss a little bit about this counting. And that is going to be based on the shir by Rabbanit Shani Tarragon. Highly recommend. You can find this shir on the Eden Center website as well. And she goes on to say that counting is not just to tick off boxes or to recite some passage or just to say the number, but that there's some introspection going on as well. And counting is seen as a consciousness, that you're aware. You have to be aware of what's going on. And that's seen with the Sheva Nekiyim and counting that, as well as Sfirot Omer. Can't just let a day go by, but we have to be conscious. Wait, what day was yesterday? What day will tomorrow be? We have to be focused. We have to be aware. We have to be present. We have to be conscious. But she takes it a step further and says that it should really be an introspection going on here. When we do count, we become more sensitive to time. Counting makes us wait and anticipate something that we're waiting for. So when it comes to Sheva Nekiyim, we're waiting, we're anticipating going to the mikveh, we're anticipating being with our spouse again. And when it comes to Sfirot Omer, we're anticipating being close to God and getting the Torah again, and getting our cheesecake. We're waiting for something, we're excited about something, we're anticipating it. And we're waiting, we're anticipating to renew our relationship with our spouse and with Hashem. Another comparison, I really like comparing things. I'm sorry if it's getting a little annoying. I just think that it's cool. For me, I think it's cool. This counting towards water. So Sheva Nekiyim, we're counting 7 days and we end up at the mikveh, body of water. Shavuot, counting 7 weeks, like the Netivot Shalom says, and we're getting the Torah. Okay, but Chazal do tell us that Ein Mayim Ela Torah, and there's a lot of other quotes around that compare the Torah to water. So we're counting not just to water, but to renewal, to rebirth, to a fresh start. And that's something that we can keep in mind as well during this time while we're counting. So practical tips for preparing for Shavuot. I can give you an awesome cheesecake recipe, but that is not the point of this year. Practical tip number 1 is to buy new clothes or to clean your clothes, have fresh clothes for Shavuot. Now, my husband did not like this practical tip because he said that, well, first of all, a lot of women do it anyway. And second of all, that's not something unique and special for Shavuot. How does that help us accept the Torah and accept God in our lives? I think if we buy new clothes or clean our clothes, freshen them up, but we do it with the mindset of, wait, what were Bnei Israel doing before they got the Torah at Ma'amad Har Sinai? They cleaned their clothes, they freshened them up, they made them tahor. They got their physical, gashmiat clothes ready to receive the Torah as well. And I would like to do that too. So those of you that are going on a shopping spree, please invite me and think about how you're doing the same thing as your ancestors did when they were getting ready for Ma'amad Har Sinai. No, they were not going into debt, but they were getting ready and getting their Gashmi clothes ready as well. Another idea is something that we spoke about earlier, which is the transitional space. Finding a time and a place to sit down and say, wait, something is changing here. Like the mikvah, like the chuppah, so something more relevant and practical for right before Shavuot. What I think of is lighting candles. Right before and right after lighting candles is a very different feeling. And yes, again, that happens every week for Shabbos and before every holiday. But if we can take a moment, even now, to prepare ourselves and say, wait, after I light the candles, it's not going to be just another holiday. It's not going to be just another special day, but it's going to be the day where we got the Torah. It's a special, special day. And I'm transitioning from Chol to Kodesh. There is a change going on here. I need to be present about that. I need to be aware of that change going on. So that's my practical tip about lighting the candles for Shavuot, but it could happen before then. It could happen now during Sfirot Omer while we're counting, to just stop and say, wait, today is number and that reminds me that there's a big day coming up, and to stop and to say that I'm going through a transition now. There's a change happening now. And this is like before a wedding, you think about what's about to happen, right? Some of us, I might have to jog your memory for that, and some of us, it might be a little bit more fresh. But right before the wedding, whether it was at the mikvah or in the mikvah or the car ride to the hall, thoughts were going on in your head and saying, wow, like something big is about to happen now. It's not just a party. It's not, I'm going to be the center of attention or I'm not. It's a change is happening. I'm going from single to married. I'm going from me being someone's daughter to now me being someone's daughter and someone's spouse. There is a change happening. Where you think about that or when you think about that is up to you. But that thought process should have happened before our weddings and should happen now before our wedding anniversary with Hashem. Practical tip number 3 I have is when counting, to be conscious of it, to be aware. Even if we're out of the race and we're not counting with a bracha anymore, to continue counting even without a bracha, because counting is so important, and that is what it says in the Torah, is that lashon of counting. And what Rabbi Nichani Targin says is that when counting, there should be an introspection. With the Shavanakim, it was there's a physical introspection going on there, physical inspection of ourselves. But with Sfira, there's a spiritual introspection, introspecting our midot. There are in some sidders and some calendars that each day is compared to another part of the Sfirot, is another part of our midot character traits that we can better ourselves in and work on. So there is some reflection that we need to do during this time. Practical tip number 4 I have is unity. We had our whole little tangent on Dveikut and what that type of unity looks like. But we also have, and everyone's like, why didn't she show us this before? This is like, we all know this one. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about before I break out into song. Vayichan Sham Yisrael. Vayisumir Fidim, number 11. Vayisumir Fidim, Vayavum Midbar Sinai Vaychanu Bamidbar Vayichan Sham Yisrael Neged Hahar. And Rashi says, Vayichan Sham Yisrael. Vayichan is Lashon Yachid. The language used here is singular. And the whole nation came to Har Sinai. They rested at Har Sinai. Why would you use a singular lashon here? Why would you use the singular language? Why? Rashi answers, because ki ish echad b'lev echad. Because they accepted the Torah. They were at Har Sinai. They were prepared to accept the Torah like one man with one heart. They were all united. And that is something that we can always work on, but especially in preparation for Matan Torah, we didn't accept the Torah alone. It's not my Torah, it's our Torah. So things to bring us closer. I think some ideas I have. One idea is to bring your own family closer. Uncles, aunts, cousins, whether they're across the street or across the world, to somehow bring that unity amongst your own family. And then to think a little bit bigger, bring unity amongst your apartment building, your neighbors next door to you. So what my kids and I did this week, we wrote a little card in Hebrew. And yes, I had my 7-year-old daughter write the card for us in Hebrew. And we made little tissue paper flowers, simple things. And we made 2. And we gave 2 and the card to each of our neighbors in our apartment building. And the card said that 1 flower is for you. And we're giving this to you in order to fulfill the mitzvah of V'ahavta l'recha kamocha. And we would like you to pass on the 2nd flower to someone else, to spread the mitzvah of V'ahavta l'recha kamocha. So it's just a nice idea to spread the love, to bring more unity amongst Am Yisrael right before receiving the Torah, so that we can all say together, Na'aseh v'nishma, not just ourselves, but everyone together. Practical tip number 5 is to declare commitment. When we said Na'aseh v'nishma, we were committing ourselves to Hashem and to His Torah. And if we can actually verbalize a commitment or write down a commitment, Ruth commits herself to Naomi, and in essence to Judaism and to Hashem as well. And again, we read Megillat Ruth and Shavuot, so that's why I'm bringing her up again. We make a commitment to Hashem, and Shavuot has the source of Shvu'ah, an oath, a promise, a vow. So we can renew our vows with Hashem all those commitments that maybe we took upon ourselves all those years ago, to recommit or to make new commitments. Some commitments that I'm thinking of are better to better ourselves with Lashon Hara. So a really, really nice idea I heard with that. A lot of us have heard to take upon certain amounts of times in the day or certain hours in the day to not speak Lashon Hara. But I forgot the Rebbitzin that gave the suggestion, so I do apologize for not quoting her. But the idea was, instead of a time or an hour, was a person. That this year or this month, I'm not going to speak Lashon Hara about this person. And so it forces us to only think good about that person. And then to add next month or next year, that person and now a new person to the list. And that way, eventually we get to everyone that we're just not going to speak Lashon Hara to, and that we're already forcing ourselves to look at people in a positive way, in a good way. We're training ourselves to do that, and hopefully it'll get easier. So again, committing ourselves to Hashem, new commitments. So just like a ketubah at a wedding day is a man's commitment to his wife of the things that he is promising her that he's going to take care of her. Hashem committed to us at Har Sinai by giving us the Torah. That's his commitment, saying that he's always going to be there for us. We can write our own commitment to Hashem, our own personal commitment. There's actually a really nice minhag that I read about. I didn't see it firsthand, but I read that in some Sephardi communities and shuls, before reading the Torah on the first day of Shavuot, they read a ketubah l'Shavuot. And I thought that was really special. It's read as a symbolic betrothal of God and his people to Israel. So we can make our own little ketubah or something that to commit ourselves to Hashem and to his Torah. Practical tip number 6 is to renew our passion, our excitement for being Jewish, for having the Torah. It's exciting. Like we said earlier, Chazal want us to have these happy and loving feelings towards accepting the Torah, not a burden, not stress, not something else to add on, but excitement, just like those feelings we had at a wedding. So some ideas are to find a teacher, to find a course or a book that will help remind us of why we're excited to be Jewish, why we're excited to get the Torah, and then to get excited to be one with Hashem, to get excited to receive the Torah again. And that way we're not forcing ourselves to stay up all night to learn Torah, but we're excited to do that. Just like we were excited before our wedding night and we couldn't fall asleep because we're so excited and nervous and there's so many emotions and thoughts going on in our head and heart. Those feelings should come back to us again the night before our wedding anniversary with Hashem. Practical tip number 7 is a really beautiful quote by Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs. That's all. I must share it with you. The heart of faith is the faithfulness that binds us to one another, in the love that is loyalty and the loyalty that is love. So when someone is loyal to us, that shows their love for us. And when you love someone, you show them that you love them by being loyal to them, by dedicating yourselves to them. That's what we're doing here. That's what we're going to be doing on Shavuot. We're showing Hashem, I saw that you're loyal to me, God. I feel your love, and now I want to reciprocate that. And I'm going to show you that I'm loyal to you too, and that I love you too. How? Practical tip number 8 is to create set times throughout the day, throughout the week, whatever we can find to learn Torah and thereby to connect to God. And then if I'm already adding practical tips here, is to find a time in the week, in the month, somewhere to set a time to be with our spouse as well, a date night. Because setting time for someone shows them that you care about them and that you want to get to know them more. And there's always what to get to know when it comes to our spouse, and there's always what to know to get to know God as well. And that brings me to tip number 9, which is communication. Communication is key in any relationship, but to set aside time to talk to Hashem about anything, but right now, maybe expectations that we have, worries that we have, even questions that we have. Just like I hope we spoke to our fiance before the wedding about expectations that we would have had for the first night, for the wedding night, worries and concerns, questions as well. And now to talk to our spouse about our expectations about mikveh night. It shouldn't just be assumed. Nothing should ever be assumed, but to have an open communication, again, with our fiance, with our spouse, and also with Hashem. Questions before I summarize? Comments? Everyone still with me? Yes, thank you. Okay, so here comes my summary. We are all about to attend a wedding, not as guests, but as the bride. Just like there is a lot of preparation that goes into making a wedding both aesthetically pleasing as well as spiritually inspiring, so too preparation is needed for Shavuot, our wedding anniversary with Hashem. This is the day we recommit ourselves to God. Tonight, we saw how wedding ceremonies today reflect Mamar Har Sinai, and we now understand the feelings Chazal want us to have when we think about Matan Torah, feelings of love, commitment, loyalty. We also showed how preparing for Matan Torah was similar to preparing for a wedding, and therefore should be preparing for Shavuot, our wedding anniversary with God. And we see that it's that much more important. So don't let this time of Sfirat HaOmer slip by. Use it to better prepare for the big day ahead. Thank you. And Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach. Thank you so much. You're amazing.
Yeah. And Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you all for coming out. If anyone wants the recording or the source sheets, please send me a message. I'll be happy to send it to you. Bye. Have a good night.
Thanks. Bye.
Shalom.
Thanks, Aviva.
Thank you.
That's great.
Thank you. Thank you.